வணக்கம் and welcome to Breakthroughs and Blunders, TiE Chennaiயோட Entrepreneur Tales podcast, where success meets chaos and blunders turn into brilliance. Get ready for real stories, raw insights, and a few laughs, all in Tanglish as we dive into the wild world of entrepreneurship. Let's shake it down. வணக்கம் and welcome to another episode of Breakthroughs and Blunders brought to you by TiE Chennai. இன்னைக்கு நம்ம கெஸ்ட் Balaram, long standing charter member of TiE Chennai, co-founder of Congruent Solutions, fondly known as Ballu. Welcome, Ballu.
Thanks, Pravin. It's an absolute privilege to be here. Yeah. And in the setting ellaam paathaga, it sounds a little more formal than it may turn out to be.
This is a very semi-formal discussion.
Exactly, especially with you across the table and our comfort over the years. I think it will be wonderful. The other thing is long-standing member னு சொல்லி என் வயசை காட்டிட்டேன். ஸோ அதுக்கு மேலே நான் ஒன்றும் சொல்ல விரும்பல.
எவ்வளோ லாங் ஸ்டாண்டிங்னா மக்களே, ஃபார் அ லாங் டைம் வி ஹேட் சம்திங் கால்ட் அ TiEPL. ஒரு நாள் TiE மெம்பர், சார்ட்டர் மெம்பர்ஸ், அசோசியேட் மெம்பர்ஸ்லாம் மீட் பண்ணி வில் பிளே கிரிக்கெட். அண்ட் ஆஸ்தான ஸ்பான்சர், எவர் வில்லிங் ஸ்பான்சர் ஆஃப் த கிரிக்கெட் கிட் and introducer of newer things. அந்த கிரிக்கெட் மேட்ச் நடக்கும்போது சைடில் வீல் ஹேவ் அ பேல்பூரி வாலா, தெய் பாப்படி சாட் வாலா. ஸோ சிலர் சாப்பிட்றதுக்கு மட்டும் வருவாங்க, சிலர் விளையாடுறதுக்கும் வருவாங்க. ஸோ
பிரவீன், உங்களுக்கு இது தெரியுமா தெரியாது, ஆட தெரியாதவன் கிட் பேக்ல வச்சிருப்பான். அந்த ரகத்தை சேர்ந்தவன்.
Ballu, tell us about yourself and the company.
Yeah. No, we've had a long journey here. You already pointed out that we've been a charter member for a long time. Entrepreneurial journey started at the age of 28. So I've actually, very eclectic kind of a journey I've had. So I am a mechanical engineer by background.
Right.
And I was very, very keen on automobile engineering. I'm still a huge enthusiast. And I got this dream job in Telco, Pune. For a mechanical engineer, that was an ideal job at that time. And as luck would have it, I also got IIM Calcutta admission.
Yes.
And everybody around me is like, you must be nuts not to go to IIMC. And I said, boss, I want to be an automobile engineer. They said, no, IIM Calcutta, a big brand name, you should not give up and all that. So actually my life altered very significantly once I went there, because it broadened your perspective. As an engineer, you're very narrowly focused on the engineering aspects of machines and stuff. And IMC was eye-opener in that sense. You started looking at other areas of an enterprise, and suddenly your perspective changes. I specialized in marketing, and those days it used to be called MIS, Management Information Systems.
Right.
It was a separate discipline. So almost by default, the choice was to get into the fledgling IT industry. And I say fledgling at that time because there were only 3 manufacturers of computers, ORG Systems, DCM Data Products, and HCL.
Right.
Even Wipro came after we graduated from IMC, around the same time, I think. So these 3 were established guys, and those were the days when hardware was paid for and software was expected to be free.
Right.
It's a completely reverse right now, where hardware is pretty much available at such low prices, and you pay for software, right? So we started that time. So post IMC, I got into the IT industry, hardware, selling hardware. And I was in Digital India at that time, called Hindutron Computers. They were the Indian partners. And then I got an opportunity to move to the Sunmark Group, Norsk Data. And I was selling Norwegian ND systems in Bangalore. I had a very good run. And suddenly a life-altering moment happened when N. Kumar called me and said, "Will you like to set up an office in San Francisco for our software export division?" And then I just, out of nowhere, took this flight, landed in San Francisco, one of the best parts of San Francisco, Russian Hill. That's where I had an apartment. But believe you me, if it's possible for somebody to be in one of the best locations in the world and yet feel miserable, I was that. It took me a few weeks before I kind of...
Were you homesick?
It's not just homesick. It was company sick, right? I mean, I had nobody in the city.
Yes.
There were people about 30 miles away and stuff like that. But I was living in the city by myself. Of course, food cooking and all is one part. But really, the only thing we could do was to open yellow pages or white pages those days. I'm talking about pre-internet.
Yes.
If you can imagine such a world, right? Pre-internet, so cold calling and look at. Then I joined an organization called SIPA, so Silicon Valley Indian Professional Association.
Right.
So. I bumped into this person because of, at that time, though, there were very few Indian companies in the US.
Yes.
So the minute I set up shop there, I looked at the consul, Indian consulate, went and met the commercial attaché, told him, I'm an Indian company, setting up shop here. So please, pass on leads or anybody inquiring for anything. This is what we do, kind of thing. And it so happened, I think it was, I moved there in October 88, and the Consul General had a Diwali party. And I got invited for that, right? So that's when I bumped into a lot of people. One of them was the SIPA president, who said you should join that. So that's when I got plugged into the Indian tech community in the US, met a lot of people and stuff like that. But that was also another significant thing is I met incoming president of a Rotary Club of San Francisco West during that party, and then became a Rotarian in San Francisco in 89. So I've been a Rotarian for the last longer than I've been an entrepreneur, actually.
Right.
But both have been very significant parts of my life overall. So I was there. That's when the US exposure happened.
Yes.
And then we were clear, I got married next year, but both me and my wife said we have to go back. And I'd also, at that time, just before going, myself, Jagannathan, and one more, classmate of mine from IMC called Pravin, three of us decided to set up shop at some point of time in the future because we said, we need to be on our own, creating employment, all the good stuff that you see from outside of an entrepreneur, till you jump into it. And we decided to do that. So Jagan had quit and started in 89, 90, Fourth Dimension Technologies. I had kind of in principle agreed to join him. So we came back and I joined as a full-time operating partner in 92. And that's when my personal journey began. We were, and one of the key decisions I took after coming on, we were at that time distributors for TVS electronics peripherals.
Oh.
Which was reasonably, big business.
Right.
A lot of volume, very little money to be made, right? No margins practically. And you run into a lot of bad debts in the reseller market and stuff like that. Then we decided to get into slightly higher end, distribution. So we became the southern regional distributor for Motorola for their networking products. And that's when we started doing wide area networking and stuff like that. So started having a growth trajectory. And Congruent Solutions happened in 98 when the original founder, VC, and gentleman called Arun Sarathi, they came to us and said they were a very small shop, services company, wanting to, very good tech shop, but no sales function, so to speak, barring VC himself. Nobody else was going out getting business, very, very India-centric. And I don't know whether you will agree with me, but I find software development in the Indian market is very brutal as a services.
Kandipa.
Because everybody wants, they'll tell you they want a 2-bedroom apartment and they'll make it a 5-bedroom villa with a swimming pool, but at no additional cost. Right? Change order, forget it.
Payment is 1 year later.
Exactly. So they were struggling and they came to us and said, would you guys, with Fourth Dimension, sell and we will implement. And we said an arm's length relationship won't work in this because the customer would probably is looking at one neck to choke. So we said we are happy, one of us will move. We'll become equity holders there if you guys are okay. So that's how we bought 50% of Congruent, renamed it to Congruent Solutions Inc. in 98. Then one of the first things I said was we are getting out of, we can't be doing business in India. Right. So we went on a recce trip.
But let me stop you there,
Yes.
Ballu. 88 to 98 கண்ணா பின்னான சேஞ்சஸ்.
Oh, yeah.
அதை எப்படி ஹேண்டில் பண்ணீங்க? How did you handle this? Too much. அதில் நடுவில் you got married also. So
நடுவில் இல்லை, beginningலேயே. So actually, before I quit my employment,
Right.
I was married.
Okay.
Right, so that is a tough one because you know the wife's family thinks they are getting married to a very accomplished engineer,
Yes.
MBA from IIM Calcutta. Therefore, steady income guaranteed and all the good stuff that comes with brand. And suddenly, you know, 1.5 years into the marriage, the fellow quits, starts something on his own, no predictable income. Where have I, you know, given my daughter to kind of questions are there. But, you know, I have to admit that the family support mattered one hell of a lot.
Lovely.
It's not just my wife, but also, you know, my parents, my in-laws, everybody at that time. I think they had more belief in me than I did myself. Right? So, you know, this guy, we'll back him. I know he won't fail. So sometimes you draw on that strength because you almost have this moral obligation to succeed because of others' belief in you. Right? So it's amazing. But from one of the seminal changes, in my opinion, was the internet. And I think we had kind of got on to that Motorola thing almost at the right time. We used to have dial-up modems. I have sold dial-up modems. by the hundreds, by the way. And my biggest, you know, I'll come to that when we talk about lessons learned. I lost a deal for about 370 modems because I didn't trust my instinct. I'll come to that at that time. But the thing was that, you know, you had to keep pace. I know, at least as an entrepreneur, you had to, we've evolved from telex to fax to pagers to mobile phones, internet. We've seen all that in a very compressed period of about 8 to 10 years.
Yes.
Exactly the time frame you're talking about. Right? So the way we work with the teams, the way they adapt to it, you know, changes with that.
Oh, you're correct. From 88 to 98, we moved from there to straight mobiles. Expensive plans, but still mobiles were there.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I remember my first mobile was in the mid-90s. Right? So I think that's one thing an entrepreneur has to do is to, you know, keep an antenna up to the winds of change, if I may say that, right? You need to be aware
So now,
of it.
part 2. You've started Congruent. India's business vaandan solittu you switched to focus to the US.
Correct.
Enna nadandhathu?
So US, one of the good things was that, you know, the family always helps.
Right.
So I have this, my youngest brother lives in the US. So New Jersey, he has a independent house with an attic which is hardly used, and the attic becomes Congruent Solutions, USA. Okay, so I still remember Piscataway. I moved in, I got an L1 and moved, sat on my. I told my brother, "Hey, I'm going to base myself out of your place," and you know, and I think he. To be very honest, I don't. He welcomed it with both arms rather than grudgingly, right? And then he was a tech guy also, so we always used to take tips. And it so happened. So what do you do when you go, you know, set up shop somewhere? You activate your contacts.
Right.
So IIM Calcutta alumni. Then, you know, fortunately we are a very close-knit family. Call every cousin and say, "Do you know anybody in tech? I need to talk to them. We do this stuff. We do web application development. We can do project in Java and all the stuff, right?" So we've done work on WebSphere, IBM WebSphere and stuff like that. So it so happened that one of my cousins introduced me to a classmate, you know, literally a chaddi dost of his from back REC days, who was in Boston, who had a startup in the 401k industry. I mean, let me tell you, you know, actually it's a series of serendipitous events that finally you can look back and say that was strategy. Right? But that's true of most entrepreneurs like us. Because another dimension I'll tell you is that, first of all, you know, most of us quit too early in our lives. Second of all, we were in a industry that couldn't spell strategy straight. Okay. We were all, you know, potti thuki ode. Vithuduva. Right? So there is no large plan of what is the market. All the good things we learned in IMC Somehow we thought it is applicable to FMCGs.
Oh, okay.
Okay, levers, ponds, all of them
Right.
will follow that. Number one, the tech product, we can't apply those things. So we could have, to be honest, right? So we went out, பொட்டி தூக்கிண்டு டோரா அலைஞ்சு வித்துருந்தோம் கம்ப்யூட்டரே
ஆமாம்.
அந்த காலத்தில். So, same thing. So we actually lagged. First of all, we were not senior enough in terms of being part of think tanks and companies. Number one, right? Because we were really out on the field. Second thing is the industry itself was very immature. They all were in a mode of box sales.
Right.
Whether it is, mini computer or PCs, we were all not looking at, okay, what problem are we solving? All the good Simon Sinek was start with the purpose. All that is, come up later.
Right.
But those days, we never got those inputs from our seniors either. So we left the, employment, started, in my opinion, with two handicaps. One is the big picture thinking wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
The second is fairly, immature ecosystem of supporting entrepreneurs. TiE wasn't there. NASSCOM was fledgling.
Right.
And, NASSCOM is always dominated by tier 1 guys anyway.
Right.
So we were all insignificant rounding off errors in their thing. Right? I mean, in those days it was worse.
Yes.
Today it's much better. In those days it used to be a big boys league. All these big guys would do it. So no real, and there was no mentorship, nothing. So everything you would do is, fall yourself, pick yourself up, learn from that and move on. So I think somebody asked me this question in one of my internal company town halls. He said, looking back, what would you have done differently? I said, see, the thing is, I think whatever I have taken these 35 years of journey, I think I could have compressed it in 15 years.
Right.
If I had started 15 years later.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of those things that are available today were not available at that
Yes.
time. And therefore, you had to do everything yourself. And therefore, you had a limited, if I had in a room, I had Ramraj, Lakshmi, all of them sitting, and I go to them and ask for inputs, things would have been very different.
Yes.
They would have given perspectives. In fact, Ramraj served on our board afterwards from 2000. So I have to thank TiE and IIM Calcutta. He's a senior of mine. Insightful. I mean, one of the things I will tell everybody is that, even though we were friends starting the company, the real questioning in the board started after we had an external director.
Okay.
An independent director in the form of Ramraj. He will come and ask really tough questions. And you start, thinking. You may not like it in the, meeting when it's asked, but it at least provokes you to think once you get out of it and say. So I think those things really made a difference. So go back to my start of US.
Yes.
Call everybody, So at that time, I thought we were very focused because we were only in web application development. We were not doing mainframes.
Right.
So we were very focused. I mean, the definition of focus itself was so what do you call, broad.
Yeah.
So it so happened one of my cousins put me on to his chatty buddy who was a CTO in a startup serving the 401k space. That's how we got into this space. For 3 years, we were their offshore partners.
Right.
We grew to about 40 members size just for them. Learned the domain. And that's how today we are, it's taken us, 24 years to become what I would call retirement vertical specialist.
Beautiful.
And probably the best of breed, definitely from India. But even within the US, I think we are recognized as Congruent Solutions is a player to reckon with.
Beautiful.
It's taken a long time, but there's no overnight success. I think.
But like a beautiful storyteller, you've planted a seed in the beginning of your talk. அதை நான் இப்போ எடுத்து கேட்க போகிறேன். What was that 396 modems that you lost out when you did not trust your gut? அதை பற்றி சொல்லுங்க. Because this is Breakthroughs and Blunders.
After 35 years, it's still hurting. So you know that it means something, right? So I was at this, so we were bidding for a business with SPIC. There was a gentleman by name Adi Kesavan, who was GM MIS there, doing the purchase decisions for all tech stuff. And he was looking for about 360 modems for all, basically it's to establish a wide area connectivity, some leased modems between the regional offices, but dial-up modems for all their warehouses and stores and distribution points and all the field locations. So at that time there were two brands, Motorola and US Robotics. Okay, and this was I don't recall the time frame, but maybe around 87. So Motorola was the stronger, all-round brand.
Right.
But robotics was US Robotics was a very strong modem brand. So it was really a
Tough
fight
fight.
between the two. So there was this thing, I had gone with the Motorola regional guy. So Adikesan said, you are about 200 rupees per modem more than US Robotics. Right? You match the price, take the deal. Okay? And our margins, so there were two factors in my mind playing real time at that time. One is our margins at that time was 300 rupees per modem at the price we quoted to them at that time.
Right.
But the whole 350 modems are not to be delivered one shot.
Yeah.
You're going to do implementation. And the modem prices are dropping.
Yeah.
With every 3 months, there is a price drop.
Right.
So I know that over a period of time, I will actually make up this margin. So I'm like, I want to do the deal.
Right.
So the Motorola guy said, let's step out and come back. So Adi said, you have to take a decision today. Because otherwise tomorrow morning, I will
The other one will go.
Yeah. And I've also given them this their last price. I'm not going to negotiate with them. I'm not going to take your price and go and lowball with them. I had a good relationship with him. We stepped out. That Motorola guy convinced me that boss, Motorola is a bigger brand. He's bullshitting you, and he will come to us and all that, and you will lose money. We'll make only $50 per modem. I said, all that doesn't matter, man. I'll take that chance. I'm the guy finally going to invoice him. He said, no, believe me. You're not going to lose the deal on this. Let's stay firm, and let's give him some token $50 per modem or something like that. So I listened to him and went against my instinct, gave him the price. Next morning at 11 o'clock, I call Adikesan and he says, I told you, Bala, order is gone to robotics. So where I'm going with that is, I think sometimes not everything is based on clear, rational and logic.
Yes.
As an entrepreneur, you've got to trust your gut. Even though it seems like, something that's counterintuitive, sometimes we have it in us because we are close to the business, we know how it runs. So I wouldn't have really put a template and done a calculation on my margins 1 year from now because of reduced prices. All that was not a calculated thing, but I know it in my head.
Right.
Because that's been the pattern of the industry. And I know that even though I may make only, I may break even for the first, 25 units, I'm going to make much more money down this road, and it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal for us. So all those calculations now I'm articulating, but at that time, that was all what I would call instinct that was at play, and I didn't listen to it. That was I've never lost a deal on price afterwards. I'll tell you where it came. There was a recent case about 6 years ago. We were talking to one of the larger retirement providers. The incumbent was TCS. They had about 200 people working for them. We do one particularly complicated piece of work in this business called compliance testing.
Right.
Where we've kind of cracked it. We've been doing it since 2004. Right. Our first customer held our hands, walked us through some detailed training, and we built based on that. And TCS has been the thing for 2 years, struggling to do compliance testing when somebody introduced me to their CEO. So that guy spoke to me once. He said, hey, I'm putting you to my head of operations. I like what I'm hearing. So you speak to her. So I spoke to that lady, and then she asked for a quote. She called me and said, you're way too high. TCS is much lower, and my CEO says, TCS is such a well-known brand, there's no way in hell I can justify paying a premium over it to a smaller player like you. So then I said, why don't we talk this instead of emails? She said, it won't fly. So then I got into the call. She said, I said, what is the price at which you'll take the deal? I said, what volumes are you talking about? And all that usual stuff. So we actually, it's a 50 people deal, right? At that time, we were doing primarily FTEs, but now we are moving to more outcome-based stuff. And I had to take that call in that conversation, right? And this US robotics thing is playing in my head. And she was also no nonsensical. She said, I told her, see, I don't bill for team leads, and therefore that's the premium. And she says, what do you mean you're not charging for team leads? So she said, Bala, let's cut to the chase, cut out all this bullshit. And it's a fairly large provider too. So they have vendor management and all that formalities. This deal is not going to happen. Up to you. I appreciate your structure and your position in the market and all that. So I agreed on that. And today it's a flourishing account for us. And we've sold, several software solutions in that space because of that.
Right.
So again, where I'm going with that is sometimes you've got to make that call.
Right.
You've got to probably take a loss leader, taking into account the size of that.
I have a follow-on question to that. Ballu, you are the founder. You are right there negotiating. What if it's a sales head? Would he or she have the freedom to go ahead?
So in our case, in fact, we've now subsequently, we've grown significantly. We now have a chief revenue officer and about 6 sales guys reporting to him. So the CRO will have the decision.
Okay.
Today we are trying to, we are not growing any younger, right? So we really, between VC and I as the two co-founders, we've really let go a lot of decision making to the next level, which I think is also important as you're trying to scale. Because we were very good at running a tight ship. So that's the good old model of cash flow and EBITDA and profitability were all important to us. But when it comes to the next stage of scaling, you can't do it all. I mean, sometimes I feel we as entrepreneurs stand in the way of our own growth by clinging on to decision. Will some of your people make mistakes? Sure, they will. But if you don't allow them to do that, I think then we are becoming the constraint for growth, which I was beginning to see. Therefore, we took this step of getting a private equity in, being able to hire a bigger team. Now, I think we can truly say that decision making is, N-1, R minus 2s can take a decision, and their supervisors can correct them and all that. And we will back them. Sometimes if they come to us with perspectives, we will give them our perspectives. But we have a framework. They know the, do not sell below price point. That's based on costing and other overheads and all that they are aware. Anything over that in terms of, because all of them are measured on both revenues and EBITDA. So it's up to them to manage their portfolio of business to make sure they hit their numbers. And they have the flexibility.
But I will come back to you on that. And என்னோட perspective even though I'm onto multiple businesses, this particular business, TiE Chennai helped me. For me to let go, it was a 6-month long process. JK helped me with that process. Dorai helped me with that process in terms of how can you let go, which is by shutting up, not taking any decision at that point, allowing for failure. How was that? Did somebody help you out, or did the founders get together?
So I've had I went through a coaching process myself. And C.K. Raghunathan and I had the same executive coach. So before I signed up, I had a word with C.K. C.K. actually stopped by my office to understand why I'm doing this. So he said, Ballu, if you are doing it on your own, I think then you are already half ready for it. Right? Most of the time, coaching is thrust upon you.
Right.
And, people don't have the openness to be able to tell themselves first, more than anybody else, that they need help. That you are reaching out to me and saying you want to do it yourself, I think you are halfway there. So I got the coach Ram Keen, Lara's learning he used to run.
Right.
I am Ahmedabad guy. Very. So for 3 years he was my coach, and even now he's a sounding board. I think that helped. But more than anything else, I think part of that coaching was that realization that you can't do it all on your own. And in between, we had started Sikova, where VC had gone out.
Yes.
And spent 13, 14 years.
What happened there? How did that happen?
So Venkat Tadankin, IMC classmate, he had quit ITC. He and I used to play tennis together in the Valley together. I had set up our Congruent office. He had at that time just quit ITC in the US, and he had joined Daksh. Daksh for about 3-4 years. He was one of the co-founders of Daksh, and he was doing that. So we used to live within, families used to meet. So Venkat said at some point of time, Daksh is getting bought by IBM. I'm looking for the next gig. I want to do something in Indo-US corridor. I said, Congruent can be your partner.
Yeah.
He said, no, nahi boss. Apna hi khud ka hona chahiye types. But why don't you guys co-invest and become partners? So Sikova started, Venkat, VC, myself becoming equity holders, and VC moving full time to manage the delivery operations.
Right.
And technology. Yeah. So that's how. So during that brief while, I was all by myself, even though VC was my sounding board. So at that time, it was even more difficult. But then I realized that my own limited perspective is slowing down, and it was. That you did it in 6 months is fantastic. I think it took a little longer for me. And you also need to have the right people.
Yes.
So you can't let go without having the right people handling certain things.
That brings me to the next question. Hiring. You spoke about N-1, N-2. In your growth, when you were 40, 200 or 150, what went into your thought process, hiring, and how did you go ahead to get the next level in?
See, I'll tell you, the tougher part was from 50 to 150. Now we are about 700 people.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the growth from about 200 to 50 to this end, I'm not going to say it's easier,
Right.
but I think there is a lot more of method, process, different types of evaluation, and a lot of tools have also helped now.
Right.
I think you can do it in far more volumes now. And the biggest problem right now is for us to get people with the product engineering mindset. Because our whole industry is bred on DNA. You tell me what you want, I'll do it for you. Rather than... So we've actually, I don't know if you know, but Congruent partnered with IIT Department of Management Studies to start a pioneering program called Software Product Management.
Right.
It's a one semester course, full credit course. Otherwise, in MBA programs, product management is FMCG.
Yes.
Right? How to sell soap, shampoo. Soap is kannadi. But technology product management is not evolved. Whereas, you have a lot of international universities. So we worked with IIT DOMS. They helped them create the curriculum. And we now actively part of it in terms of our people going and taking lectures there. So others have also, followed suit now. So some of these is we've found, we were a services company ourselves.
Right.
So to morph to a product company was a big change for us.
A lot of my observation on the partla services trying to be product have been failures.
We have actually
been
an exception in one sense. Because, first of all, it was predominant. So ours was not an inside-out approach. Build this great product and then look for a market. Right? So I think that was a big difference. We started on this journey because we were constantly getting feedback from the market that there is a need for a more modern technology solution. Most of the existing platforms were all legacy, mainframe, 35, 40 years old. But even today, some of them are running because it is, the segment we are serving is also risk averse. Insurance companies, banks. They're saying, why fix something that is not broken type of an approach. And the perceived risk of going for something new is much higher than the reward they perceive by moving to a new. So it is a uphill task. In fact, I remember I met one of the iFlex founders in the US. He said, "Bala, you're a brave man. how do you get into this vertical and try to do this?" But so one of the decisions we took at that time, based on the feelers from the market, was that we will build it modular.
Right.
So people need not buy the entire thing, but they can take specific pain points and go after it. So coming back to the hiring, because coming back to the product success story, it's because we actually built it more from an outside in. We hired very, very senior industry leaders as our advisors and consultants. So they were there right from the beginning, helping us put the blueprint for the product. What is the key pain point? What should we prioritize? If you're building an end-to-end solution, there are about 15, 18 different modules. What do you start with? Which is marketable faster as a module? So all those inputs came from the industry rather than our own sense of what will help. So that was, in a way, it was validated. I think that's where a lot of services to product companies fail, because the other trick in the product game success is to not make every implementation unique. So that really, it's a completely opposite DNA compared to a services thing where we tell the customer, tell me your requirements, I'll build it for you. Here you have to tell him, yes, this is what you think you need, but this is how our product does it. You have to change certain things that you do so that you minimize customization.
Right.
Otherwise, what happens is you will have 20 clients using a framework, but 20 different code bases.
Right.
Then it's very difficult to call yourself a product company, because then you are really a services company using reusable components.
Yes.
Correct? So I think that is, people like Dorai were there at the early stage.
Right.
He's, in my opinion, he was one of the earliest product evangelists in India. So he would tell us, we watch out for these things and stuff like that. And we had some product engineering gurus from the US also helping us. So I think now we have, but he changed. But even that is a challenge, because, people who have been rooted in services culture have a tough time morphing into this.
Good. Something about your reading. Do you read? Do you listen to podcasts? What pulls your attention?
So most of my attention these days is on human behavior and leadership.
Nice.
So Simon Sinek podcasts are one of my favorites, because in each one he has some pearl of wisdom that you can take away and then provokes you to think differently. But one book that I read which made a huge impact on me way back was a book called Alchemist.
Yes,
right?
Paulo Coelho's.
Paulo Coelho.
Yeah.
I mean, that gave you belief that if you really stay focused. And there is a book, poem by a guy called Edgar A. Guest. You might have seen it. It's called Don't Quit. I used to have a printout of it and put it on my wall. Because every time I feel low, I will read that poem and say, okay, success is around the corner. Don't give up. Don't give up. It's a fabulous motivator kind of poem. So that was the early thing where you say, if universe will conspire to get you there. If you have a single-minded
Which has
passion.
happened in your case now.
In our case, it has. But you will doubt it along the way. Sometimes, though. When is the conspiracy going to turn out well for you, right? Because, and people of our background, we had, our, opportunity cost.
Yes.
Of not being employed as a executive in
yes.
a MNC was very high. Because all my classmates were, very senior. So that sometimes you have to, therefore, the self-talk is important. So sometimes you can get these things, hey, he's doing so well, maybe I should have taken a career, all that stuff. I mean, I'm saying that's where the self-talk is so important. That your journey is different, somebody else's journey is different. And you are going to create a legacy that you will be proud of at the end of the journey. You have to have that conviction. So, fortunately, it's played out that way. Sometimes it's not like that. I mean, you keep devoting yourself to cricket, you may not play test cricket. But
Ballu, now that you say cricket, From serendipity to Serengeti. I mean, I've seen you as a cricketer. Now I see that you play tennis. So tell us a whole lot more outside your entrepreneurship.
Boss, hold on. Yeah. Just because like I said in cricket, just because I provide the kit doesn't mean I play it well. But I have the enthusiasm.
Yes.
Right? Even now I play cricket. Tennis, I was at best a passable player.
Right.
But Venkat kind of tolerated me, I should say. So my, in terms of cricket, I'm a diehard fan of cricket, and I follow the game pretty much. I'm a huge fan of Test cricket more than the others. I even now go to Chepauk and watch 2 or 3 days of a Test match whenever possible.
இப்போ நடக்கிறதே 2 நாள் தானே.
3 நாள் Test match.
3 நாள் Test match முடிஞ்சிருது. Gets over in 3 days.
Yeah. So that's one. Then I don't watch too many movies.
Right.
I read a lot of thrillers, but also a lot of leadership books, podcasts and stuff like that. I'm heavily involved in Rotary.
Yes.
There is a fair amount of politics in Rotary, but I look at the good side. There's also so much work being done by Rotary to help the community. So, I look at that side, and I've been, like I said, way back in 89, I joined the organization. There's a lot of good being done by Rotary.
Absolutely.
So I spend a lot of time on that, supporting projects and, being part of some and stuff like that. I'm on the board of another NGO called National Agro Foundation. It was started by C. Subramaniam. His son is a good friend of mine. So we basically formed about, I think, 2000 or so. To basically increase the prosperity of the rural farmer. And I think they've done a terrific job. Yeah. I'm on the board, and, hopefully I'll play an active role, more active role as we go forward. So that's an area. Education is an area. I'm on the board of a organization called Relief Foundation, where for the underprivileged we do. So I think I'm a very firm believer that if God has put you in a position to help others, you should. Right? So, and also, the reality is that for you to lead a good life, different people may want for different order. Right. But if you have 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 crores, you're set for life.
Yes.
Anything more than that, I think you should definitely use it to help people. At least in our country, there's so much to be done.
Yes.
Right? So that drives me. So I'm passionately involved in whatever little one can do for people. So now so many activities that you run out of time. So which is why I took this 10 days off, went to Serengeti, had a wonderfully soul-enriching experience.
Very nice.
So one of my friends asked me, boss, Serengeti रोज जाके वही एनिमल तो देखेगा. I said, you have a good question, man. Yes. But I watched every other T20 game I watch because Rohit Sharma will do something different, right? Or somebody else will. So every day the same animal, different experience.
Yes.
Right. So it's fantastic. So I'm into fair amount of traveling.
Oh. Nice.
Now actually a stage in life where most of our classmates' kids are getting married.
Yes.
So on an annual basis, we are traveling about 15-20 times to attend other people's kids' marriages. A lot of reunions.
Nice.
Now we've all reached that stage. So, friends, family, good fun.
Oh, Ballu, and you continue through donating your time to podcasts like these. எத்தனையோ கேட்குறவங்க entrepreneurs இருக்காங்க. So many of them would love to learn, how you navigated and some of the nuggets. Trust your instinct. Get into big picture thinking, get an external director or accountability partner. Don't stand in your own growth. If you are looking for a coach, you do it voluntarily. It will have a lot more effect. And how you solved your hiring problem, the toughest part 50 to 150, going ahead and striking a partnership with IIT DOMS to solve your future problems. Especially as you turned from a services to a product company with an outside-in approach, getting industry leaders for your product blueprint. Not every implementation is unique. That's something I take. I'm not in the technology space, but I'm in the professional speaking space, which means I cannot be customizing to suit everything else. This is what it is. Let's look at it. And then, of course, for entrepreneurs, and my biggest takeaway that I would like to share from Ballu is positive self-talk is important. And this is a journey that we have picked by ourselves voluntarily. Nobody pushed us into entrepreneurship. We fell into the love of it. And so a positive self-talk. And like you said, right at the beginning, not homesick, but company sick. And when we have the right company around, we will also be positive, cheerful, and working through. Ballu, thank you very much.
Thanks, Pravin. It's been an absolute pleasure. To be honest with you, I didn't really realize that I had given so many nuggets. It sounds more impressive coming from you than from me myself.
Well, I was busy taking notes.
But to be honest, I think one of the key things I would say, these days, of course, one has got involved in angel funding and all that. I think one of the key things that one other takeaway I'll say is, it doesn't matter if you have the best product in the world, unless you find a way to sell it and somebody to write a check for it. It means nothing for an entrepreneur. So I think most tech entrepreneurs tend to believe that because their product is so wonderfully built and so well engineered, people will line up to buy them. That can't be farther from the truth. So I think which is why Chris Gopalakrishnan and Desh Pandey, the initiative IIT Madras, where they do test marketing of thing across 100 prospective clients.
Yes.
I think that's a wonderful way because that actually does the litmus test.
Yes.
Otherwise, you were so caught up in what you build that you think it's the best mousetrap that's ever been built. But nobody built. So I think that's something I would tell everybody.
Yes.
Don't underestimate sales and marketing. It has a very, very important role in your scheme of things, even though those guys are just MBA farts.
But it's necessary. So that's it, folks. Signing off. I'm your friendly neighborhood outlier marketer, Pravin Shekhar, on behalf of TiE Chennai's Breakthroughs and Blunders podcast. Till we hear from each other again. See you. That's it for today on Breakthroughs and Blunders. Remember, every misstep is just a plot twist on the road to success. Keep learning, keep laughing, keep hustling. If you'd like to be a part of this podcast, write into us at TiE Chennai.